People who have melanin have been told that everything in the body is governed by the brain, and that every reaction in every system is brain governed, and that is wrong. Melanin acts independently. It is capable of instantaneous reaction to energy fields without being processed through any of the neuron synapses and dendrite stems of the brain. In other words, it acts as a chlorophyllin carrier. It takes energy, reacts to it, and processes its own information to its nearby cells. That's why you can get, again, those beautiful moves of the Michael Jordans, those cuts and so by the football players, and those immediate reactions, because you can't stop and think. They have to train people without melanin or with little melanin to react. People with melanin react anyway, because it's like what they showed on the black Buddhas. You have eyes everywhere. You are totally conscious, and you don't wait for brain processing, which slows it down. We'll prove this to you in the classes, because you can inflict pain, and if you have your mind off somewhere, it'll take sometimes up to 15 seconds before you feel the pain. And you can even delay that longer if you're trying to offset pain by merely mind control. They don't teach you, though, with melanin, you can make that instantaneous reaction, or you can delay it up to 30 seconds, or you cannot even get to feel it at all by simply using certain ways with melanin and ingesting certain foods and herbals. Melanin is a gift from the gods. With melanin, you can speed up your healing process in half. And if you really get into a strong magnetic field, nothing to do with the electricity, which hurts you in the main, you can even cut that into a third. You can see into the body without using anode-cathode ray bombardments, if you have melanin, by using magnetic fields. One of my favorite people coming in there again, Brother Lilly. Brother William Lilly, hello there. Gotta say hi to you. This is a man who has helped me a great deal when I've come in here to New York. First time he's attended one of my lectures. I'm very happy about that. Once you begin to use this kind of energy in this fashion again, per se, you can speed up everything that your body does and everything that your brain does. You can even speed up the kind of energy and frequencies that normally you're attuned to that come in to your body and into your brain. This makes you a god. What is a god? I'm not going to go into all of that because that's a long thing, but any race of people or any individual that begins to do the supernormal that everyone else is not usually able to do is looked upon as a wondrous avatar or person. People want to worship people. You shouldn't worship any person, really. No person should be worshipped. No person should be envied. Respected, studied, watched, emulated if what they're doing is good. That's as far as it takes, because you too are gods. How do I know it? You have melanin. All the history of the gods that came from various places, advanced scientists, advanced races of all description, from lizard-looking creatures to snake-looking creatures, from little short ones to very tall ones, 30 feet tall. The bones are still on our earth to prove that they did live here at one time in physical form. All were amazed at the most advanced people in our galaxy, what they had done with a certain issue of people here by giving them melanin, the gift of the gods. That's why you're being buzzed now with all kind of UFOs. I know Bobby Hibbert talking about the mothership and so, but they got motherships of all descriptions around here, good and bad. Some you don't want to get near. Don't even want to get within 50 miles of them, if you can avoid it. And others, you want to run and embrace, and if they weren't around, you'd have been annihilated a long time ago. But we'll see about that. We'll talk and break it down in our classes. Government's well aware, well aware. In fact, they've even built about 33 of them themselves, and I don't know how long, because that was last year, as they are now trying to get into photon drive and so. But your gift is that at the highest degree of the cultivation of melanin throughout the pigments of the cells, endodermal, ectodermal, bloodstream, and so, each of those glands is then able to reach its highest vibration and loose what is called the astral body. The real mothership, as I said before in one of my lectures, and I had to do this because the brother kind of introduced it on a level that is way out esoterically, and he's right. They say all but one thing I agree with him on. So I have to now kind of change what I was going to present and back into the actual Melanin Wars to tie in with what he has started. When the melanin in a form of high energy yield throughout the body vibrates, every cell in every organ vibrates faster. Since melanin is also in the brain vibrates faster. And the frequencies that it can reach are astounding. They're the frequencies that let you seem to be out of your body looking down on it that they all talk about. They're the frequencies that let you sense when something's going to happen to one of your loved ones before it happens, and if it's happening, almost go crazy because you know it's happening even though you're not there. It beats any switch on E80TT, Northern Telecom, or Bell Atlantic. It is your instantaneous form of communication. It is a thing that messes up your cable TV when you pass by it. It is a thing that sometimes when you get excited, again, begins to interfere with your TV patterns. And it's a thing that we just don't utilize enough. Why? Because who was going to teach it? The teachers were killed when they brought us out of Mother Africa. The teachers were killed when they attempted to do it here. And even under the Masonic Guild and the ancient ones who tried to at least serve the gods by helping the children of the gods to know who they were killed and tortured as worse as you were because they didn't want you to know who you were. They wanted to steal the planet, imprison you, and take what the gods had left. Again, I'm talking about gods, advanced scientists from many worlds watching a special project here on this planet Tierra, Shan, Sanche, all names for this little place. Melanin, when operating well, causes the pituitary gland to release hormones that they haven't even cataloged. They can't because they have no way to measure the hormonal things because they're instantaneously then and they're gone. But when they're there, they give you flashes of the cosmic universe. Intuitive flashes in full color of who you have been and what you can be. The same flashes that when you depart this body and your life passes before you, that you go through again. But did they ever teach you that you don't have to die to bring that about? That cosmic wisdom of knowing everything that your ancestors knew is yours every night when you go to sleep and between 11 and 2:30 when the melanin glands are working at its best. But you must have total darkness. That's why they give you the TVs that never go out. Last night, I was in a hotel room. My wife would tell you this. She woke up because something awakened her, and there was a beam of light on the back of my head. And she said, "What in the heck is that?" And she awakened me gently and went and covered the cable receiver, which was actually obviously not a receiver, but a sender on the back of my daggone head. Now, I didn't even know what hotel room I thought I was going to myself. So it's by accident that this goes to the back of my head? What was it doing with my occipital lobe where my psychic equipment is? And by now you should know I am a psychic. Okay, I do channel. But I thought I was under my own control. What the heck was messing with me then? The same thing that messes with all of us all the time when we begin to come into consciousness as to who we are and begin to not talk about it, but do it. Melanin, then, is a gift that separates you from anybody that doesn't have it. People say that black people are ugly. People say that people with melanin are really not desirable, and they're so on and so forth. Isn't that an interesting photograph? You can't see it from there, some of you, but it shows a very pale woman and a very dark woman. It's the same woman with artificial melanin and in a natural state. And the caption says, "Stay beautiful year round." Keep your melanin with you wherever you go. Be more desirable and wanted. Fulfill your wildest dreams. Wear the colors that you only dreamed of previously. But everybody hates dark people, right? The gods loved you previously pale people by giving you permanent glands and melanin capability because it understood that the planetary frequency was going to be changed by those who don't like you and wanted to see another race of their own prosper on your planet. And they beat off your overseers because it would have been total bloodshed in the cosmic universe and in this solar system to have fought them longer. And say, let them have their sway for a season. They changed a beautiful, oxygenated, and I heard what the brother said, magnetic field into an ozone-infested electromagnetic field and cut down the frequencies and then cut off your 12 basic strands of DNA and limited you to 2. And then later on even saw that that one was halved into 2 helixes. This only means this: if you understand anything about computers, anything at all about lines that carry power, if you've got 12 lines of cable bringing a current from one source to wherever you want it, and you've got one cable, one line, bringing you a current from wherever you want to a you, which do you think would be more powerful? Should be more powerful if they're both of equal value. The 12. Well, you had 12 lines throughout your body bringing you 12 kinds of energy which you could utilize. And they messed with 11 of them. Cut them, and they're now what they call junk DNA. There is no such thing as junk DNA. Go back and tell your professors I told them that, and they lie. Or they're ignorant and they shouldn't be professors teaching genetics. Junk DNA are those strands that were cut, and when they weave back together again, and they're going to, you will have the power potential of 50 gods, 50 supermen, 50 Atlases, and Schwarzeneggers and anything else that you want to have, because the physical body will then follow the astral, etheric, mental, causal, higher forms of energy. And all your dreams will become answered. Don't think that anybody's going to let that happen if they can stop you. And they're going to try to stop you with every means known to this planet. It is a war on. The only thing is, you only realized that there were battles. You didn't know you were in a war for this very planet. But many of you now are coming into that consciousness, as you should and must. The best from Kemet, i.e. Kubulan, is here in the United States. Survivors of those DNAs, even though you see they killed your ancestors, they couldn't kill the DNA strand that produces those kind of beings. That's why killing is such a stupid, wasteless thing. Because all you do is to transform that energy into a higher form that will be able to withstand the thing that took out its ancestor, and ancestral rights go on. That's what they were trying to tell you when they said study your ancestors, because you are your ancestors. Did you hear me? You don't have to pray to your ancestors. Look at yourself. Every molecule, every DNA, everything that ever was in melanin is never forgotten and transplants itself into another body with the same memory that was locked in the first one. You just have to get the key to know who it is. That's why they don't like to take you into regressions, because all of that comes back. It still comes back sometimes with the drugs And that's what the people who take the drugs don't understand. They get flashes of greatness without being able to maintain it, and then since they haven't raised their vibrational rate, the whole thing wears out, and you age overnight, forget what you did know even in this incarnation, become stupid and rancid, and go around having to have other people with less possible intelligence take care of you. That stupidity has got to stop. The potential when you can bring those strands back together is to do everything that the best computer, PC or mainframe, hardware or software can do, and do it 9 times better and quicker, and even have the machines fearing you as they used to. That's what the whole concept of machine Manitou that the Algonquins who used to populate your area here were afraid of. They're teaching you now of virtual reality. Virtual reality is your consciousness in just half awakened state being used, where whatever you can imagine you can bring about. That is past the virtual reality. When your melanin is functioning correctly, you can bilocate by being in consciousness one place while being in your body in another. Some people call that state now death. That is real life. That's why they used to have guardians for the body, watchers, and all kind of other terms that some of you from Louisiana, from Mississippi, from the old country, and with the teachings of the god Valdal knew about. And that's where you used to run to those people to bilocate and tell you what was happening and to influence your enemies. And you know your grandmothers and grandfathers talked about it, and some of you may even practice it now. But practice it in the light, in the full capacity. It is a gift from the gods. You earned it. When you don't do the drugs, and I do a lecture called Drugs and the Astral. If ever you want to get a dope head off of his drugs, teach a person with melanin who still knows that he has a soul and a spirit, and she has a soul and a spirit, that they actually can ground their soul on hell. That's the other term for earth when the non-melanin carriers came. And have to go through this 9 lifetimes to get it straight again. And if they don't believe that, ask them, what do you think they're doing with their life now when they themselves know down deep that the days are passing by and they're going nowhere except into a total extermination of their physical body. The herbals that you take work differently because they have part of the earth in it, and part of that earth awakens the old earth people who are melanin carriers. And therefore, all of those kingdoms of the plants, the animals, the insects, the birds that fly, and everything that creeps and crawls and moves responds to that vibration because it was a vibration that they were created in also, and they look upon you as gods. Gods who don't know who they are. Inasmuch as melanin works on every part of the body and is in every cell of your body, now when the energy fields of earth change, it will begin to vibrate faster, and every part of you will begin to quicken in what it's capable of doing. The tests of any kind, the inoculations using basic low vibrations, food that does not have energy stored within it cannot work well for you now because you are in the process of change. I told you in a previous lecture, everybody in here this summer will get 1 shade darker than they are, whether you go out in the sun or not, because the light will be entering into you. The energy will come in whether you close windows or doors or not. And for those who are not used to it, it is absolutely carcinogenic, leukemic death that they're asking to go out in the sun this summer. But as the melanin is stepped up, if you must go out in it, you can survive. The point is, again, it will begin to make your head feel as though it was almost wavering, And until you balance out that melanin and get the higher frequencies going, all it will do in some cases is to give headaches, other cases to make you want to cover the head. But at night when you sleep, each night having been exposed to that, the melanin will go through a metamorphosis and you will wake up with more insight as to who you are, and certain psychic abilities will begin to form within 48 hours after that exposure. If you adapt to it, the next time out, more happens. And then the DNA and the cells will begin to come together, just like a magnet, because magnetism is what it will awaken in your body. And then they'll begin to entwine the strands little by little up to the year 1997, when all melanin carriers are supposed to have 10 of their strands back together. Then you will see the difference in having melanin and not having melanin. But time is something that you can control. You can make 1997 1996. You can make 1996 1995 if you're willing to put the discipline necessary to bring it about. I don't even know if it's good to bring it about at this time. I don't know, because it means your loved ones will think you're crazy. People will begin to fear you when things begin to move, or TVs begin to go off, or lights begin to flicker when you pass the top of your head near it, or you wake up in the middle of the night and can't sleep because visions and colors are coming to you, or you see objects in the room and you may scream, and they'll say, "My God, get rid of this food. What has happened here?" They will. Your own best friend laying next to you might put a hurt on you. You know at the job, if suddenly when you're doing this, you suddenly say, "Who's that over there?" and nobody sees anybody. Oh yeah, human resources, if it gets that far. You know what I'm saying to you. You've already had to hide many of these tendencies, which are already happening if you're into the wuxi herb. I'm not talking about the bad stuff now, I'm talking about the natural herbals. Very heavy into those things again, you know what I'm talking about. That is that thing that these dope heads don't understand. They know they lost something, they know it puts them in a different vibrational rate, but they don't understand you can't mix it with drugs and expect it to work. You've got to discipline, and at night, between that 11 o'clock, even with your time zone change here, I guess it would still be for you about 10 o'clock and 3. That's when the melanin and the melatonin and the melanocytes vibrate through the pineal gland and go throughout your body. That's when you're supposed to have absolute darkness into your meditation. And as I stated before, never go to sleep without meditating about what you want to happen to you. Don't leave all that equipment on recording and you don't give it direction. You don't, somebody else will. Use your equipment or your equipment will use you. It's gonna work. Let's hope that you are the one that make it work. Somebody's in your house robbing you, you don't aid them. You turn on the alarm system and work your apparatus for defense. Am I wrong in saying this? I mean, is there something I'm saying that doesn't make sense? Whether you believe it or not, at least look at the possible logic for this. Because you haven't known before who you were, but thought you were that you ought to be, you have been hated by those who weren't. I don't need to go back over there again, do I? No, I don't, because you heard it. You just want to feel good again. For too long, people have been making you feel good so that you never work at staying good, and you may be gooder than they thought, or not as good as they thought, and you're living again on the rhetoric of it. I want you to begin to work at it. I want to inspire you, but I want you to work. Like I must work, and everyone must work, because it's not going to just be handed over to you again. If you're not ready for it, it's just like giving a loaded gun to a 3-year-old. Enough strength to pull the trigger and not enough strength to know any of the repercussions once it's done. The government of not just the United States, but I want to stay with this one for right now because it's where we live, brought about the thing called AIDS. And I've got a whole thing on AIDS, what it is, what it isn't, and a whole tape on AIDS, the update. We're not going to go to an AIDS lecture. I'm not teasing you, as some of you, I think, have mentioned. I mentioned these things and don't go far enough. These are all separate things. This is about melanin, so I'm telling you many of the things that were done. What I'm saying to you now is this government produced AIDS. Many of you already know that. But the reason why they produced AIDS through Helen Lack, and HL was Helen Lack, V was for virus, a black woman who died of cervical cancer in 1951, and they sipped her melanated cancer cells all over, and that's why the AIDS virus had an affinity for melanin. Okay? What they wanted to do was to work on a substance called melanin, and they knew if they could attack melanin, everything else on the planet was susceptible, including the plants, because they produce melanin in the form of green chlorophyll. If you spend enough time in a cave or in a well or in darkness and you have melanin, you first will turn ashy, and then you begin to turn greenish blue. People with little melanin will turn very pale and ashy and lose the probability of melanin at all and become very pale or albinos, cut off from the ultraviolet rays of our sun. But what they haven't told you is that Earth has another sun. Did you hear me? Deep inside the Earth is another sun which radiates and energizes plants from underneath, and melanin carries from underneath, so they can do anything they want to one sun. You can go to the other sun, so when they block out the sun soon, all that's going to do is intensify your melanin carrying ability, because the inner Earth sun, which they dare not tell you about, will still take over. Nature, through the Creator first cause pride, does not play. Knows full well what he, she is about, and knows that the order for this little planet has got to change now. AIDS was supposed to take out melanin carriers. AIDS caused your immune system to kick in even further and brought about the very thing that they didn't want. It always works like that. AIDS mutated and began to attack the very thing that they tried to get it not to do, because it met with another strand and strain and began to attack people without melanin. Whole lecture I do on melanin. The church, because in your flyer you found it said AIDS and your government, your job, your church, and you. The church people in general didn't understand this. And they began to call and say, AIDS is a thing that is in his righteousness, the Lord God is going to invoke to wipe out evildoers. Well, if the Lord God would just wipe out evildoers, we would be so happy, it would be a shame, and I'd be all for AIDS. On your job, they said, we shall not pay you because you are a walking, cancerous, potential disease-bringing organism, and we won't be able to work because if you come around, you give us AIDS. So your money supply was threatened. Your source of income through your job was threatened. But notice how they've even backed off of that now. In the NBA, where they pay fabulous salary to fabulous black men, if you got one cut, your whole career was threatened. Now they put a Band-Aid on it, stop it from bleeding, and you go right back on and do what you're supposed to do. And I understand why Magic Johnson is so frustrated, because he never should have stopped playing ball anyway. He believed the lie. He believed the hypes. He believed the great white coats. Now, since the nation and others such as myself, through tapes, and I didn't talk to him directly, tapes are trying to send, people try to get to him and say, listen, brother, this is the truth. That's when he got so mad and got off all the government panels about AIDS and all the rest of the things and went on back out there now and doing his thing. they made him ashamed for being a man. And what man hasn't had 2 women at one time, even if it was only for an hour, in his mind? He didn't rape those women. Those women wanted him because he was a man's man, and that's just the nature of things. Don't you also feel that way? We listen to such foolishness. In mother country, they have many wives if they can afford them and if the women want to stay there. There are places where women have many men if they want to spend their energies that way. The whole point is, let's talk about the reality of what they were saying there and not about the foolishness of what they were saying there. AIDS attacked them worse than it did us if we have melanin. And it was not why it was created. AIDS in you. You've noticed that even though you hear constantly bombarded what AIDS can do to you, there doesn't seem to be an innate fear of it. I know, because you walk around, you still kiss, you still hold, you still eat anywhere. I see the vendors up and down the street. They could all have AIDS in their foods. You don't stop to ask that, do you? You say, how much is it, and is it good? Where am I lying, folks? I don't lie. I make you think, I hope. When this deadly virus that they didn't know where it came from and they didn't know anything about was going to wipe up half the human race and everything else again, was released, everybody refrained for sex for a while, and everybody didn't want to go to work, and they dare not get cut, and they didn't want to kiss. And then they told you, well, that's okay now. They've now done further studies, and they know that it's only sexually transferable. And again, if you watch and have safe sex by wearing some kind of protection, it's going to be all right. Well, that's not what they said to begin with. And if they didn't know what they were talking about in the beginning, why did they let loose all of this false information and scare people half to death and stress out the nervous system and the immune system and give you something else to get scared about, as though just living amongst pathological creatures isn't enough? When the body is in disharmony, anything can attack the immune system, and usually will. That's why stress is probably worse than the AIDS virus itself. And fear is worse than both of them put together. Because when you live in fear, you can't open yourself to melanated light. You can't sleep well to let the pineal gland kick in and let your immune system kick in. You can't worry because you can't feel good because you're constantly tight and worried, and stress alone will bring you any disease that you want. And in fact, if you think about and fear something long enough anyway, you will bring it to you, the very thing that you fear. Whereas love and relaxation will also bring to you, and this is what we also teach in our classes, the same thing that you want. Because whatever your mind sees and knows and you can visualize and turn that second strand to try to unite and bring about, it will come to you. Anything you want, you can have if you think about it long enough and really, really want it. You'd be surprised. We 1/2 and 1/4 want things because we don't know what we're going to do with it if we had it, because we really don't think we're ready for it, and that right there means you're not going to get it.